In this video, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the MIDI effects bundled with Ableton. There are not nearly as many MIDI effects as there are audio effects, but that's okay. The difference is MIDI effects can only be used with MIDI. Audio effects can be used with audio or MIDI, since MIDI is converted to audio at the end of its signal chain. So here I have a track with several plugins on it. First we have the instrument, and I want you to notice that in this case all of the plugins are to the left of the instrument. Audio effects go to the right of the instrument because, as I said, the MIDI has to be converted to audio at the end of the chain, then it can run through those effects. But before the MIDI information even gets into the instrument, it can be manipulated with MIDI effects. So here I have this clip with a sort of melody part. Let's listen to it. Now the chord plugin allows me to take those MIDI notes and turn them into chords by adding these other pitches to them. So here I have +3, which is a minor third, +5, which is a perfect fourth, and +7, which is a perfect fifth. It's going to get kind of a crunchy sound. And I can change that. I will bump this up to 7, and I'll bump this up to 10. We now have a minor 7th chord. Now the scale plugin is very interesting. What it does is it forces all of the notes that go through it into whatever scale you select. If you open up a default scale plugin, it's going to be set to the chromatic scale with a bass of C. But if I go into my presets here, I have a bunch of different scales at my disposal. So I'm going to get, for instance, the C minor preset. And now you can see these blue squares have changed. And basically what this is saying is that if the MIDI note that comes through is a C, it will pass out as a C. If, however, the MIDI note that comes in is a C sharp, which is not in the key of C minor, then it will be changed to a C. D will be able to go through, E flat will be able to go through, but E will be changed to E flat, because E flat is in the key of C minor, but E is not. It takes a little bit of time to understand this grid, but once you do, it's very, very handy. You can change the bass here. So if I wanted this to be in D minor instead, then I can change that bass right there. If you use the chord and scale plugin together, you can use it to generate diatonic chords. You know, rather than just having the chord qualities be chromatic. If I add an arpeggiator into the mix, this gets even more complex and richer with adding rhythm into it. Of course, we've used the arpeggiator a lot in the class, so I'm not going to go over really the settings for it. Let's just listen to it. Using these three plugins together gives you a rich palette of possibilities. Moving on here, we have a few other plugins: pitch, note length, and velocity, which are the three essential characteristics of MIDI notes. You can change the pitch with the pitch plugin, you can adjust the note length with this plugin, and you can manipulate the velocity with this plugin. Let's check them out. So I have changed the pitch of the incoming MIDI down 2 octaves. I could just type that in as well. Now it's down 1 octave. If I want to change the length of those notes, I can do that here. And this is a lot easier than going through and like editing all the notes, although that would be a little more accurate. You can edit them globally here by changing the length. And then here you can manipulate the velocity. I can set a limit for the upper velocity or the lower velocity. I could use this knob to compand the velocity, which is a combination of compression and expansion. And as you can see in the info view box there, positive values push the notes to louder velocities, and negative values push them toward the middle range. You can also randomize the MIDI velocities coming in here, and they will fall within this sort of light gray area. So this is a great way to add a bit of uncertainty and maybe some generative processes to your MIDI notes. And you can quickly adjust the pitch, length, and velocity of your notes with these plugins. Speaking of randomization, in this track, we have one last MIDI plugin, and that is the Random plugin. And what this does is it randomizes the MIDI notes that are coming in. So if I play this clip, that's what it sounds like. If I add randomness, you'll hear how it changes the pitch. And so that can add a bit of uncertainty to your tracks as well. And then finally, we have a MIDI effects rack, which is similar to the audio effects rack. You can just, dump several plugins into it and create sort of a super plugin of your own design. There may not be as many MIDI effects as there are audio effects, but you can do a lot with these. If you want more MIDI effects, you could always go to the Max for Live plugins, and there are many more MIDI effects as well as audio effects in there. I'm not going to demonstrate those plugins in this video, but I will say if you go to the Max for Live portion of the Ableton website or cycling74.com, you can learn more about Max for Live and all the ways it can extend and enhance Ableton Live.